Morning, Year Sevens. Welcome to your literacy. I'm going to read the next section of the book to you. In the sea there are crocodiles. My mother, I'll just call mother. My brother, brother. My sister, sister. But the village where we lived, I won't call village. I'll call it Nava, which is its name and which means gutter because it lies at the bottom of a narrow valley between two lines of mountains. That's why when I came back one evening after spending the afternoon playing in the fields and mother said, "Get ready, we have to leave." And I asked her where, and she replied, "We leave in Afghanistan, that's why." When she said that, I thought we were just going to cross the mountains because as far as I was concerned, the whole of Afghanistan lay between those peaks. Afghanistan was those rushing streams. I had no idea how vast it was. We took a cloth bag and filled it with a change of clothes for me and one for her and something to eat, bread and dates. And I was beside myself with excitement about the journey. I'd have liked to run and tell the others, but mother didn't want that and kept telling me to be good and keep calm. My aunt, her sister, came over and they went off into a corner to talk. Then a man arrived, an old friend of my father's, but he didn't want to come into the house. He said we should go now because the moon hadn't come out yet and the darkness could deceive the Taliban or whoever else we might run into. "Aren't my brother and sister coming with us, Mother?" "No, they're going to stay with your aunt." "My brother's still little. He won't want to stay with my aunt. Your sister will look after him. She's nearly 14. She's a woman." "But when are we coming back?" "Soon." "When soon?" "Soon. I had the Buzul Bozi tournament." "Have you seen the stars then yet?" "What have the stars got to do with anything?" "Count them, Eniat." "That's impossible. There are too many of them." "Then start now," said Mother. "Otherwise you'll never finish." The area where we lived in Ghazni province is inhabited exclusively by Hazaras, who are Afghans like me with almond-shaped eyes and squashed noses. Well, not exactly squashed, but a bit flatter than others, flatter than yours, for example. Fabio, typically Mongol features. Some people say we're descended from Genghis Khan's army. Some say our ancestors were the Koshan, the ancient inhabitants of these lands, the legendary builders of the Buddhas of Bamiyan. And some say we're slaves and treat us like slaves. To leave the area or Ghazni province was extremely dangerous for us. And I only say was because I don't know how things are today, though I don't suppose they've changed much. Because what with the Taliban and the Pashtun, who aren't exactly the same thing, but both used to treat us badly, you had to be careful who you ran into. I think that's why we left at night, the three of us. Me, Mother, and the man. I just call him the man because Mother had asked him to go with us. We set off on foot, and for 3 nights, under cover of darkness, with only the light of the stars to guide us, and in a place like that without any electricity, starlight is a very powerful light. We walked to Kandahar. I was wearing my usual grey piran, long trousers, and a knee-length jacket of the same material. Mother walked in a chador, but she had a burqa in her bag to put on for when we met people, which was useful for hiding the fact that she was a Hazara and also for hiding me. At dawn, on the morning of the first day, we stopped at one of the huts where caravans of traders break their journeys. Though, to judge by the bars on the windows, it must have been used for a time as a prison by the Taliban or something. There was no one there, which was a good thing. But I was bored, so I used a bell hanging from a beam for target practice. I gathered some stones and tried to hit it from 100 paces. I finally managed, and the man came running, grabbed me by the wrist and told me to stop. On the second day, we saw a bird of prey circling over the body of a donkey. The donkey was dead, obviously. His legs were trapped between two rocks, and it was no use to us at all because we couldn't eat it. I remember we were near Shagjoy, which was one place in Afghanistan that Hazaras really had to avoid. In that area, it was said passing Hazaras, like us, were captured by the Taliban and thrown alive into a deep well or fed to stray dogs. 19 men from my village had finished like that on their way to Pakistan, and the brother of one of them had gone to look for him. He was he was the one who told us about the stray dogs. All he'd found of his brother was his clothes with a pile of bones inside. That's how things are in my country. There's a saying among the Taliban: Tajikistan for the Tajiks, Uzbekistan for the Uzbeks, and Goristan for the Hazara. That's what they say. Gor means grave. On the third day, we met a whole stream of people on their way to some unknown destination, escaping from some unknown threat. Men, women, and children on wagons filled with hens, rolls of fabric, barrels of water, and so on. Whenever a lorry appeared going in our direction, we would ask the driver for a lift, even a short distance. If the drivers were nice people, they would stop and pick us up, whereas if they were unpleasant or angry with themselves or the world, they'd speed up and drive past us, covering us with dust. As soon as we heard the noise of an engine behind us, Mother and I would run and hide in a ditch or among the bushes or behind some stones, if there were big enough stones. The man would stand at the side of the road and signal to the driver to stop. Just like a hitchhiker, but he didn't use only his thumb. He waved his arms to make sure they saw him and didn't run him over. If the lorry stopped and everything was safe, then he would tell us to come out of the ditch, and Mother and I would climb aboard, either in front, which happened twice, or in the back with the merchandise, which happened once. The time we climbed in the back, the trailer was full of mattresses. I slept very well that time. By the time we got to Kandahar, after crossing the river Arghandab, I counted 3,400 stars. A pretty good number, I'd say, at least 20 of which were as big as peach stones. And I was very tired. Not only that, I'd also counted the number of bridges blown up by the Taliban, and the burned out cars, and the blackened tanks abandoned by the army. But I'd still have liked to go back home to Nava and to play Buzzle Buzzy with my friends. I stopped counting the stars when we arrived in Kandahar. I stopped because it was the first time I'd ever been in such a big city, and the house lights and the street lamps would have been too distracting, even if I hadn't been too tired to keep count. Kandahar had tarred roads. There were cars and motorbikes and bicycles and shops and lots of places where men could drink chai and talk, and buildings as much as 3 stories high with aerials on the roofs, and dust, wind and dust. And so many people on the streets, there couldn't have been anyone left in the houses. After we'd been waiting for a while, the man stopped and told us to wait while he made arrangements. He didn't say where or who with. I sat down on a low wall to count how many coloured cars passed, while Mother just stood there, so still. It was as if her burqa was empty. I could smell fried food. Radio was broadcasting news about lots of people disappearing in Bamiyan and the discovery of a large number of dead bodies in a house. An old man passed with his arms raised to the sky, crying, Kodaya, Kahar, begging God for a bit of peace. I was starting to feel hungry, but I didn't ask for food. I was starting to feel thirsty, but I didn't ask for water. When the man came back, he was smiling, and he had another man with him. This is a good day for you, he said. This is Shaukat, and he'll take you to Pakistan in his lorry. Salam, Aga, Shaukat, said Mother. Thank you. Shaukat, the Pakistani, did not reply. Go now, said the man. We'll meet again soon. Thank you for everything, said Mother. It was a pleasure. Tell my sister the journey went well. I will. Good luck, little Eniat. Ba omididida. He took me in his arms and kissed me on the forehead. I smiled as if to say, but of course we'll meet again soon. Take care. Then it struck me that good luck and we'll meet again soon didn't really go together. Why wish me good luck if we were going to meet again soon? The man left. Shaukat the Pakistani raised his hand and signalled to us to follow him. The lorry was parked in a dusty yard surrounded by a metal fence. In the back were dozens and dozens of wooden poles. Taking a closer look at them, I realised they were electricity poles. Why are you carrying electricity poles? Shaukat the Pakistani didn't reply. This was something I only found out about later. Apparently, people came from Pakistan to Afghanistan to steal things, whatever there was to steal, which wasn't much. Electricity poles, for example. They came in lorries, knocked down the poles, and carried them across the border to use them or sell them. I'm not sure which, but for the moment, what mattered was that we were getting a good lift. In fact, more than good, an excellent lift, because at the border, they didn't check lorries from Pakistan so carefully. It was a long journey. I couldn't tell you how long. Hours and hours across the mountains, bumping along past rocks and tents and markets. Clouds. At some point, when it was already dark, Shaukat the Pakistani got out to eat, but only him, because it was better for us if we didn't get out. You never know, he said. He bought us some leftover meat, and we set off again, with the wind whistling through the window, the pane lowered just a crack to let in a bit of air, but as little dust as possible. Looking at all that land rushing past us, I remember thinking about my father because he'd also driven a lorry for a long time. But that was different. He was forced to. My father, I'll just call father, even though he's no longer around, because he's no longer around. I'll tell you his story, even though I can only tell it the way it was told to me. So I can't swear to it. What happened was the Pashtun had forced him, not only him, but lots of Hazara men from our province to drive to Iran and back by lorry in order to get products to sell in their shops, blankets, fabrics, and the type of thin sponge mattress. I'm not sure what they were used for. This was because the inhabitants of Iran are Shia, like the Hazara, while the Pashtun are Sunni. It's well known that brothers in religion treat each other better, and also because the Pashtun don't speak Persian, whereas we can understand it a bit. To force him to go, they said to my father, if you don't go to Iran to get that merchandise for us, we'll kill your family. If you run away with the merchandise, we'll kill your family. If, when you get back, any of the merchandise is missing or spoiled, we'll kill your family. If someone cheats you, we'll kill your family. In other words, if anything at all goes wrong, we'll kill your family, which isn't a nice way to do business, in my opinion. I was 6, maybe, when my father died. Okay, so that's quite a sad note to end on. I've gone on a little bit further than I was meant to, but you heard the dad's story a little bit. And next week, when we read on, we'll find out how the father died. So we keep ending our reading on really depressing notes, don't we? First of all, his mother disappears, and this time we found out that his dad dies. All right, I will see you all on Monday, Year 7s. Bye for now.